Right, some news, first of all, in the past half hour from Cairo. Breaking news from Egypt suggesting it's put forward a proposal for a 2-day truce, which would allow some, I say some in 4 Israeli hostages of around 100 still said to be alive or dead in Gaza to be exchanged with some of the Palestinian prisoners. This is coming from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. He's been speaking in the past hour or so. It's a press conference in Cairo, and President Sisi said that talks would then remain, and after the 10 days of implementing the temporary ceasefire, the idea is that it would reach a permanent one. So that's news we're getting the past hour. This, in the meantime, is what we're hearing from reports in the north of Gaza, footage showing the after effects of another series of intense airstrikes. At least 45 people reported dead. Palestinian health authorities saying that they are mostly women and children. Let's go to Jerusalem. Let's bring in Sami Sockol. Sami, great to talk to you tonight. Let's start on the news that we're hearing coming from Cairo. Tell us what you're hearing.
Yeah, well, so far we have not heard any official response from the Israeli side to this proposal. And I can tell you that from Israel, we haven't been hearing too much ahead of these talks in Doha. From Hamas, on the other hand, they've been leaking that they are in favor of a proposal which will bring about an end to the war, a withdrawal of the Israeli forces, a release of all the Israeli hostages in one go, and release of Palestinian prisoners. They have also said that they're willing for any other kind of model or proposal. So they're kind of showing some kind of a flexibility. Israeli negotiators keeping their cards very close to their chest, especially because we know that Netanyahu has been expressing over in past rounds, and he has been saying that the war has to continue.
Very interesting, Sami. We're waiting to hear a response officially from the US and, as you say, from Israel. But there's a big difference, isn't there, between a proposal, which seems to be solid as far as President Sisi is making enough to say, OK, I'm going to make this public. This is what we could see, to actually seeing that in action. And meanwhile, in the north of Gaza, as you and I have been speaking for the past 2 days, is operations intensive in pretty much a storming of a hospital in the north, ending after 24 hours, Jabalia camp, airstrikes there. Tell us what you're hearing of the Israeli operations in the past few hours.
Yeah, so we have been seeing an intensification of the strikes, and on the other hand, Israel is saying that it is being successful in killing Hamas fighters and in making arrests. But the footage that we're getting and the reports we're getting are more and more civilian casualties. There is a report that this afternoon only 9 were killed in the Asma school in Shati refugee camp, which is a refugee camp, an old refugee camp that dates back to 1948, that is near the beach, also known as the beach camp. And there we hear that there were civilians that were hiding there and they were bombed. And yesterday there was a report of maybe 35 who were killed in Beit Lahia, in another bombarding. So the picture there is very grim, and especially as the ambulances and the civil defense forces cannot reach their locations, and people have been evacuating the wounded to hospitals that can barely give them the assistance necessary.
It's very interesting, Sami, particularly as, and you make this point before, there was some kind of access from the Israeli military at the start of the conflict, Embed's brief, that was all we had as international journalists. Now that doesn't appear to be happening at all. Take us through what's going on at your side of the border. We're hearing of a truck driver ramming into a crowd today.
Yes, indeed. We have a truck driver who is an Israeli citizen, but his background is Arab Palestinian from a town called Kalansawe, which is just north of Tel Aviv. And this truck driver, he drove very close to an intelligence base Glilot intelligence base, which is located just north of Tel Aviv. And he ran into a bus. In the bus, there were elderly people who came to visit the base. And next to the bus were soldiers, and they were also hit. So we have one killed, dozens wounded, and the driver himself was shot and killed. Now, the police, they have not yet announced whether this was a deliberate attack. This is what everyone here believes, that this was a deliberate terror attack. But the police say that they still want to investigate into the background of this driver and check out whether this could have been something else.
Okay, so a number of issues. Also, let's just take a look at this, because Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking today. We're talking about a day on from the Israeli strikes, that's retaliation strikes on Iranian targets. We heard from Ayatollah Khamenei essentially saying this is not the end of it, we must respond. This is what happened when Benjamin Netanyahu was talking and was interrupted. Let's take a look.
משפחות יקרות, זכר קרוביכם
Explain the context here, Sami. So this was some of the families and supporters and friends of those still being held hostage. Is that right?
Well, Israel has been marking today a yearly memorial for the 7th of October attack. Now, it's true that they marked it also on the 7th of October, but this is a designated date which is more coinciding with the Jewish calendar. In any event, there were two speeches that Netanyahu held. One was for the fallen, bereaved soldiers, in which he made remarks about Iran, and the other one was talking to those families of the civilians that were killed on the 7th of October. And this is the first kind of interaction that he has with these families. And these families are very upset, and they were shouting at him, shame on you. They see him as being responsible for what happened on the 7th of October. They are saying that he is responsible to the massacre. He should resign. There should be an inquiry commission. So all of this kind of boiled up today at this event.
Sami, great to talk to you. There's a lot to explain there. Sami Sockol, our correspondent in Jerusalem.